Okay, it looks like we're going to get started with everyone that we have. Again, good afternoon. My name is Alexa Wajed. I am the chairperson of the Erie County Arts and Public Places Committee, and I am joined by our administrator, Colette Ballestieri, who is
Hello.
also on the call. And she's going to walk us through our slides. As we go through the slides or as you are listening to everything, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to jot them down. And we will go ahead and take the time, if we are able to answer them during this call. If you have a question after this call, you can simply email us at the Erie County and Public Places email address that will be listed at the end of this PowerPoint, as well as a list of all the questions that have been received and all of the official answers from Erie County. So at this time, it's about 5:34. We're going to go ahead and bring in Colette. Did I do everything I was supposed to do, Colette?
Perfect. And I
It's
saw
all
a
yours.
question come through in the chat. This will be recorded, so the recording can be uploaded to our website, but then also any of the questions that have come in thus far, and then any questions that come out of this meeting will be in the recording, but also in a list so that they're easily accessible for any artists who are looking for them. So let me see, but I'll go through the questions that we have received so far. So these are the questions that were either emailed to us, or some actually were remaining from the prior year's cycle, and they were still relevant for this year. So I figured they might be some questions that you might have today as well. So the first question is the up to $75,000 budget per location or total? So the $75,000 is the total budget per location. So there's 2 locations for the Major Works program, and both you can submit up to $75,000. The next question is the call geared more towards sculpture or wall-mounted work? And the answer to that really is that proposals for the Art and Public Places Major Works program typically call for larger pieces, including but not limited to murals and sculptures. However, what is proposed by the artist is up to their discretion and should take into consideration what is appropriate for that public art location, including maintenance, etc. So while a sculpture might be a great option for these locations, we didn't want to put any limitations on a proposal that an artist comes up with that was outside of the box of what we were initially thinking. The next question is for sculptures. Will artists be required to carry insurance after installation, or will Erie County carry the insurance after installation? And if the artist is required to carry insurance after the installation, how long? So the answer to that is that the artist would be required to carry insurance during the design, fabrication, and installation process. But after installation, when the work is complete, the work will become part of Erie County property and fall under the county's property insurance. So the artist will hold insurance during the design and fabrication and installation, but afterwards that will be fall on the Erie County's insurance once Erie County owns the piece. And next, if a sculpture is proposed for one of the sites, is the artist responsible for hiring and budgeting for the concrete base and below ground footings, or can Erie County provide the work? So Erie County Department of Public Works would provide the concrete foundation needed for a sculpture.
And Colette, I'm just going to interrupt you a quick second. If you are selected as the artist for the specific location, whether the Botanical Gardens or Outview Park, once your proposal has been approved and accepted, and as we work through the contracting phase, at that point, you will work with Erie County, and they will ask you all the necessary questions, the dimensions, the depth, the specifics of your sculpture, to get more information to understand what kind of footings are going to be needed for that sculpture if you require it. And we'll be working, hand in hand. You will not be left out in left field. This is something that we have a very We're committed to. Erie County is committed to these projects, so we want to make sure that they are successful as possible. So any questions, any concerns, feel free to share them at any time.
So the next question that was received, are any major materials, i.e. boom and scissor lifts, provided by Erie County, or should this be encompassed in your budget? So please include all costs for any materials and rentals in your budget. As Alexa mentioned, Erie County is committed to these projects. We're here to help as needed, but for the initial stage, please include the cost of any materials or rentals in your budget. Next, is it allowable to enter 2 separate proposals to the same location? So while an artist cannot enter 2 separate proposals for the same major works location, they may enter into for both locations. So you can submit 2 proposals, one for Isle and one for the Botanical Gardens, but you cannot submit 2 for the same location. Next, regarding the Botanical Gardens location, the rendering shows trees in the surrounding area that could possibly limit the size of the sculpture. Would these trees definitely be part of the final public art location? So there are no trees currently in the project location, and the landscape plan for this area can be changed depending on what art piece is selected. So the trees that are in the rendering were just there for the renderings purposes, but they won't necessarily be there. And if they limit your piece in any way, they wouldn't actually necessarily be there. So you can just let us know, obviously the dimensions and things like that, and the Botanical Gardens, as well as Art in Public Places, will work with your design.
Yes, and the really cool thing about the botanical in Erie County, the Botanical Gardens, is that we are in Erie County is in the middle of working on the construction and the finalizing everything that has to do with the reconstruction for the front area of the Botanical Gardens, as well as some of the other areas. So the really cool thing about this location is that you can suggest some things that would work in terms of landscaping or tile or areas around your sculpture. And we can have those conversations to see how feasible it is for the project as a whole, as well as your public art proposal. So if you have a vision that incorporates landscaping and or different tiling, then feel free to make those suggestions, because nothing has been cemented literally as of yet.
And I will say, with regards to this rendering, I've had a couple questions that didn't make it onto this slide for the possibility of having this rendering submitted for artists to use if they're, wanting to put their proposal onto the rendering itself, obviously without this big yellow arrow. I did reach out to the Botanical Gardens, so if I do receive a JPEG that doesn't have the yellow arrow in it, I'll be sure to put it on the call for art so that artists have that at their disposal if needed.
And Colette, there's the question that came into the chat that might be a good time to address before we go on to the other questions. The question is, how will structural engineering be handled for the piece of art itself, the foundation, and the interface between the two? If a structural engineer is needed to be hired as a subconsultant, can the county advance payment of the engineer prior to the project delivery? So regarding this specific project, Erie County won't do any advances for payments of engineers. That will actually have to be in your budget. So you need to know, i.e., you need to work with a structural engineer, a stamp engineer, to understand exactly what is going to be required. And then act like Erie County is going to be the contractor that is actually doing the work. However, you should still have the price and budget for all of that as well. It's just helpful, especially if this is the first time you've ever done a proposal for a sculpture. It's helpful for you to actually go through the entire process so you understand all the parts that are needed, and you understand the budgets and the minimums and maximums in terms of cost for specific things. So that will help you in the future, but it will also give Erie County a concise view exactly for what you are going to need for those concrete foundations and such. So no, Erie County will not advance any payments. But again, if there's something specific that you need assistance with, we can work through it. But the expectation is that you will already have all the knowledge and speaking with any engineers that are required and architects if needed for your sculpture project and proposal. Hopefully that answered the question.
Great. So for the next question, also related to the Botanical Gardens site, they asked, could you confirm the exact dimensions and any flexibility in the footprint and advise whether artists can influence the surrounding landscape and ground treatment, either concrete or pebble, to support an immersive year-round walkthrough installation. And so this actually, the response from the Botanical Gardens was that the footprint for this area is flexible. Therefore, exact dimensions were not identified. Artists can collaborate with the Botanical Gardens horticulturalists to influence the surrounding landscape if integral to the design. The ground layer can be determined by the artist in their proposal. So the Botanical Gardens, as well as Art and Public Places Committee, are open to all types of proposals for that location as well. Okay, and so that actually is it for the questions that have come in through email. I can move on to talking a little bit about the copyright information and then some insurance requirements if there are no specific questions related back to the questions that were submitted. Okay, I'll go through the copyright information and insurance, and then we have a lot of time for additional questions as needed. Okay, so for copyright information, so this will be written directly into the contracts. It's the artist expressly reserves every right available to him/her in common law or under the Federal Copyright Act to control the making and dissemination of copies or reproductions of the work, except as those rights are limited by the agreement. The artist expressly permits the county to reproduce the work graphically for purposes strictly for the sole use and benefit of the public. All reproductions of the work shall contain a credit to the artist and copyright notice substantially in the following form: copyright, artist name, year of publication, in such a manner, and the location as shall comply with the U.S. copyright laws. So in all, the artist owns the design and the county owns the physical work. And for insurance, there are three parts here. So at all times during the duration of the project, the artist will maintain workers' compensation and appropriate employer's liability insurance covering any employee of the artist engaged in activities related to the project in an amount acceptable to the county. Part B, the artist acknowledges that the county is not required to maintain insurance against damage or theft of the work or personal property used in connection with the production or installation of the work. And then part C, the artist will provide general liability insurance covering the project with a combined single limit per occurrence of $1 million or for bodily injury, death, and for property damage, $3 million annual aggregate. So the artist liability policy should name the county as additionally insured.
And Clep, before we move forward, there were a couple questions in the chat.
Sure.
The first is the Botanical Gardens area outdoor or indoor? And for that area, we are specifically looking for the outdoor. With the renovations, we think it'll be really great, as well as Botanical Gardens. If we have like this entry piece that, draws people in to the new entrance and allows them to understand what the new flow of traffic is. And then the second question is the public art able to be physically engaged, or is the public able to physically engage with the piece, specifically walk through, touch, and be around? So the Botanical Gardens, possibly not because of its location, because it's going to be set back a little bit from the walkway. So it's probably not a good idea for the walk through, touch, and around for that one. However, for Isle Park, absolutely. We would love the engagement with the piece. We would love if this also stood as something like an educational piece, because people really don't know what seiches are. And I think this might be the first understanding that people have of what seiches are and how they affect our lakes. and our parks. So yeah, if you want to make that piece as interactive as possible, that would be great. But again, just making sure you're paying attention to, as I already know you are, Jesse, you know, any hazards with the sculpture, any sharp angles, you know, anything too low, anything that could tip off or tip over. So you just really want to be mindful of all of those specifics for those sculptures. And then the third question is lighting or title slash tables labels the responsibility of the artist or Erie County? That's something that we would be in contact with. So if it's in your proposal, let's get in your proposal. If it's something that you want to speak with Erie County about, then let's have that conversation. We are responsible for the labeling of the piece and making sure everything is identified, because these pieces will be part of the Erie County Art and Public Places collection. But as far as lighting, it's a possibility. So I would say you really want to make your proposal what your proposal is. And then you could always ask a question within the proposal, or ask another question once you get to the, you know, the second or third round, to see if Erie County would be interested in assisting in something like that.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Y- Yes, Jesse? Oh, okay, good. Anybody else have any other questions at this time?
I kind of got there here late, so I put in a proposal for a mural, and then I was wondering if that is what you're expecting. Oh no, come on in.
Well,
Sorry.
with the murals, if you do propose a mural, which is
Mm-hmm.
very possible, we would suggest that you also include in your proposal a way for it to stand or be installed. Because we would not be supporting anything like that. That would have to be within your budget, within your
Mm-hmm.
plan. If you were to create, you know, a steel structure or a wooden structure, you to install your mural, you also have to show the
Rhonda, hold her,
justification.
hold her. No,
You
she
would
won't.
also you would also have to state in your proposal
Sorry.
your, that's okay.
I
Your
gotta,
justification.
I gotta move. Just hold
Okay, if you go
her.
ahead and mute, I can answer the question, and then Colette will make sure she collects everything, and it will also be listed on the website. Um, but if you go ahead and mute your phone, I can just keep talking.
No,
Um,
okay.
so if you are going to erect something to house your public art mural, then you
Yes.
need to list in your proposal the justification of the materials that you're using, as well as a maintenance plan and how long you expect those materials to hold up.
Okay, so it isn't really a mural thing. Okay.
No, I mean, we are looking for something sculptural because these are kind of
Oh, okay.
freestanding areas. These are
Oh,
not
okay.
actual buildings.
Freestanding. Okay. I
Oh,
can probably figure out something like that. I do a lot of woodwork. And
that's
how
awesome.
large?
Well, again, we have dimensions and in the proposals, as well
Okay.
as you can visit each location just to understand what
Okay.
area you have to work with, so that you can propose the best thing for that site.
Okay. And this and and where's all this listed? In the
Right
proposal.
on right on the erie.gov/public art
Okay.
website. You can
All
find
right.
all the specifics for your proposal submission right on that link.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds
Thank you,
good. Okay.
Valerie. Thank
And
you.
now also, I'm gonna mute this. No, she's quiet now. Okay, I'm still listening.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody else have any other questions?
Hmm. No, I'm just gonna have to read over their proposal and see what I can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
And so if I do come up with it, it's got to be within this till April 20th.
Yes, that is the timeline of when we expect all proposals in for consideration.
Okay.
Cornelia, I believe you had a question, and then Jesse, you're next. Cornelia, you're on mute. Oh, you're good. Okay, Jesse.
So when did you say we could get image of the rendering?
So I had reached out to the Botanical Gardens just this
Oh, we're just waiting on an
afternoon.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. And I would love to be able to convince them to engage the public a bit into that area, maybe pull people up in there. So I'll try to convince them.
Okay. And also look at the renderings that we have,
Okay.
Jesse, just to see, because it's kind of like an oval area
Yeah.
that's set back. So, see, I'm sure there could be maybe a walkway around it.
Hmm.
As you already know, just because it's an entrance, you might want to not, how do I put this? Flow of traffic.
Gotcha.
Considering it's the entrance and, not
Not get in the
bottlenecking
way.
and things like that.
So
Yeah. So just
the entrance,
those
yeah,
parts.
they're right. The entrance is going off to the right there.
Right,
Okay.
right. But
Okay.
I know sometimes they have lines and things. So just things to be mindful about. And
Mhm.
maybe we can ask Colette just an understanding of their high peak times to see what those entrance flows might look like or be like. And I know they won't have it regarding the renovations, but maybe currently they can give us a little feedback in terms of what they expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Thank you.
we'll have an idea of both of those areas and what would fit, right?
Well, we will encourage you to visit the site
Oh, okay.
outside of what we provide for the Botanical Gardens based on their renovations. But
Mhm.
we don't want to specifically tell you this is what you have to do, or if it has to be this much, that would be part of your proposal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I see Daniel put a question in the chat. Can they provide an architectural site plan and building elevations in addition to the rendering? And I'm pretty sure they might be able to do a modified version of what they have, Colette, but can you verify and see if that's something that they can provide? Maybe
Yes, I can.
our Public Works Department might have that.
Mhm.
Cornelia?
I do have a question. Hey,
Hi.
let's assume I have two brilliant ideas for like one of each. Could I really get both commissions?
No, you are only
Okay,
able to get one
okay.
commission, but you can submit both of your proposals, one for each location. So one for Botanical Gardens and one for Isleview.
Okay, and a follow-up question. Your examples of projects that you linked to the Alview kind of are very conceptual. So are you looking for a highly conceptual art piece? I mean,
I'm
those
not.
are linked to universities
Mhm,
and to
mhm,
engagement and to this and that and measuring and all kinds of things.
mhm,
Like
mhm.
it just surprised me. That's
Well, the thing is, we don't want you to be limited in your creativity. You may have an idea that you can execute successfully that we're not aware of. So are really truly relying on the artists to be their true creative selves and kind of, see how they can bring a different perspective to these public art sculptures and these public art pieces. So not conceptual. We want something that can actually be brought forth to life and exist in real time. Specifically for IOView, we definitely do want it, engaging in some way.
Okay. That sounds fun.
It
okay.
does.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Cornelia. There
Mhm.
is a question in the chat. For the submission, are you required to provide 5 sculpture pieces that you have done in the past? Or can the example experiences not be sculptural but design related? It could be design related. We have had that in the past where they are sculptures that have not come to fruition as of yet. However, we do need to know that you are capable, you have the bandwidth and the knowledge and the capacity to successfully bring these sculptures to life, whether it's through conceptualization to the foundry to installation. we need to know that you are able to actually do the work that you put on the paper. So if you do have any sculptural pieces, or you are listing the teams that you have worked with in the past, or the teams that you will work in the past, will work with for this specific proposal, all of that would be very helpful if you are only submitting sculptural design related type things. So we need to know that you know how to do it.
Got it. Okay. Gotta go.
Okay, well, thank you,
Got
Valerie.
to-
We appreciate you being on the call.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm sorry to be late in my coming,
That's
but
that's quite all right. You have a
lot going on.
wonderful, yeah, you have a wonderful week.
Oh, great. Thanks.
All
You
right.
too.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Oh, you guys are great. You guys are great. Thanks. No, you're great. No, you're great. No, you're great. I'm sorry. I'm still on here.
You are, but thanks for telling us how great we are. We
Oh, we're
appreciate it.
great. No.
Have a good one.
No, they're saying I was. That's crazy. I can't get this off. Wow.
I came home with your fork last time.
Oh, well, you can always have my fork. I can't get
Put it
off.
in here, it's all clean.
I can't get off. Help me up. Here.
Colette,
Oh,
are you able to help Valerie?
no.
Unfortunately, I do not have my normal
Okay,
permissions, but I
there
think we're
she
good.
is.
Okay,
We're
great.
good. We're good. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully everyone is excited as you all are kind of thinking about other questions or things like that. Hopefully you are excited for these submissions. We're excited to receive your proposals. These are really exciting locations with the renovations with the Botanical Gardens and the Isle Park, which is going to be very new for everyone. I think it's going to be, we all think it's going to be really it's going to be the perfect thing for 2026, especially after our first year with the Convention Center mural and the Health Mall mural on Broadway. So these two works are going to be in the Erie County collection. And yeah, and they'll be part of our launch for 2026.
Can I ask one more thing?
Sure, please.
Timeline kind of looked like it was beginning in the summer.
Yeah, so the timeline is a little shortened, but the goal is to have installation done during the summer, late summer, or early fall of 2026.
Okay.
That is the goal. But if something happens or takes place that is beyond people's control, then obviously, we would need to work with that. But the goal is to fabricate and install summer to winter. Yeah. And even if it's a matter of, and this is without speaking to the county, without speaking to Public Works, but I'm sure there's a little flexibility because with sculptural work, you don't need necessarily wonderful weather to install. You just need to make sure you get that cement footing in when the ground is soft. So we can talk about what the timeline would be. But the goal, especially for the Botanical Gardens, we really want to have it installed prior to the launch and opening. Oh, there are two other questions in the chat. The first is there a way to reach out to artists that might be submitting to offer fabrication installation services? I'm not sure what that question is. Does Buffalo Architectural Casting want to oh, are you asking if you can reach out to the artists? Can you jump on the mic? Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's a lot more people on the call than I thought there was going to be, but yeah, I've just been interested in the projects, and we have some artists in house that might be submitting some proposals, but I also, yeah, wanted to see if there was a way to, I don't know. I didn't want
Oh,
to
no, that's
opt
okay. I
on the
just
mic
wanted
and
to,
be
no,
over the top with it, but I just
no,
wanted to, yeah, sorry.
you're not over the top at all. I just wanted to make sure the question I was reading was the question I was hearing in my head. You know, sometimes those things differ. So there, unfortunately, there's not a way that, you know, we can tell all the artists that submit to reach out to you or any other casting or fabricating corporation. They should already have their fabricator and installer set prior to submitting the proposal, because that will be part of their proposal package. But definitely, your artists, they should totally submit. We would love to see what they have to come up with. And then another question. Okay, two-part question. Oh no, actually, Buffalo Architectural Casting, you have a text in the chat. Another question is for those of us who are primarily muralists without a lot of sculptural experience. Do you know if the Botanical Gardens is open to mural proposals in addition to the sculptural work as part of their expansion? At this time, I do not know of a call for art being out for the Botanical Gardens for a mural. However, there potentially could be some opportunities in the near future to either have artwork in the Botanical Gardens or potentially something that has to do with a mural. But at this time, no, we don't have anything for that. These are great questions. Hopefully you're getting satisfactory answers.
Okay, I
And
can't
if
stand the silence. Are we all set?
I think we're all set. I was just actually going to go right to the call for art and just remind everybody to review the overview. The themes and messaging is going to be really important, especially for the Isle View Park, as well as looking at what you should consider during your proposal. So really read through those RFPs really well, just so that you're hitting all the points, making sure that you have everything in your proposal, including a maintenance plan, as well as a maintenance budget. Because I know times people just kind of forget about those things. Make sure you obviously have your engineering portions, you have all of your collaborators and your team members, and just make sure you have that information because it will make your proposal really strong. And if you have no other questions, feel free to hop off. But
I have a question.
Okay, thank you, Barry.
What length of time does the maintenance plan have to cover?
Well, it should kind of, I'm sure, with
Forever?
sculptures, there should be some type of annual maintenance plan, right? You want something
All
recurring
right.
for the
I
life,
got it.
yeah, for the life of the sculpture. And actually putting in within your maintenance plan, kind of how long you expect this sculpture to be, erect, even though,
Yeah.
just put as
Okay.
much information there as you can.
But so you're putting a maintenance plan in your proposal, but that's not part of your budget. Okay. I get
You
right.
should also include if there are additional funds that your sculpture is going to require, you should include them. They do not have to be part of your budget, but if you're saying that you have to this purchase of this special sanitizing stainless steel cleaner needs to be used on your sculpture twice a year, that needs to be in your maintenance plan because we need to understand if we're willing to make that type of investment or if it's something that we can substitute with something that we have. So if there are specifics to your particular sculpture, you need to include that in your maintenance plan.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Very great. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for everyone's time. We still have 20 more minutes. If you would like to stay on, you're more than welcome to, but you are not required if you have received all the information that you need. Again, our email is publicart@erie.gov. You can email any questions that you have, but you can also look at any additional questions and answers at our website, which is erie.gov/publicart.
I missed because I had problems. I was on. I missed the first 7 minutes, but I saw that there was a recording of this.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're going to be able to. Is that going to be emailed to us, or do we have to put where are we going to find the recording so I can get the first 7 minutes?
So the recording, once it's on Erie County's YouTube, which usually that's in the next 2 days, we'll put it right on our website. So that's the erie.gov/publicart.
Thank you.
So we'll have a direct link, correct, Colette? We'll have a direct link to YouTube of the video, of the
Correct.
replay
Yes.
on the website. But that is your single source of information, erie.gov/publicart. Thank you, Amanda. See you, Cornelia. Thank you. See you, Jesse. See you, Barry. Good seeing you all.